Hi everyone, this is Andy T here. This video is entitled Lessons Learned, also known as You Won't Know If You Don't Try. I had been struggling to try to sort out a project that had gone badly wrong. The customer was explaining it one way to me, and how the project leader thought it was, how the engineer designed it, how the programmer had written it, how the salesman had described it to the customer. The documentation was just didn't exist. What operations had installed was complete farce, and how and so it went on, and I thought to myself, what, for goodness sake, what would James Bond do? He'd get Q involved. He'd come on. So come on, Q, move over, James Bond. It's time for Q to take over. So from that moment, of course, my mind has gone into complete modelling. And the project has gone out the window. And I remembered that I'd done this what if model from the Octopussy James Bond film, and I had wondered what would happen if I could create something from the tuk-tuk that he was being driven around in. And so I thought, well, perhaps I can amalgamate the tuk-tuk and Little Nelly. So that's what I did. I got a 1/24 Airfix kit, and I modified it and did all sorts of various things. And yes, you guessed it, I created an armour-plated tuk-tuk. But my idea was, why not motorise the scale kit? Now, bearing in mind we're talking 1/24th scale here, the idea was, why not motorise the scale kit? But clearly there were going to be some difficulties in doing this because of its sheer size. So the first thing was to actually find some motors, did some measurements, and the motor I came up with was a mobile phone motor, and this has an offset counterweight, and it's as you can see there, I've taken the counterweight away and off the shaft, and I've also taken the rubber sleeve off the motor. And when it's in the phone, if this motor is activated, this is what basically vibrates in your hand to tell you you've got an incoming call. So the motor's 10 millimeters long by 5 and a bit, let's call it 6 millimeters wide, and it works on 3 volts DC, but I'm not going to use it on 3 volts. I'm actually going to use it on 1.5 volts. So the first thing I've got to decide is, will this motor, now I've managed to get some, actually fit into this section, into the rotor head? I previously measured it before I bought the motors, but it's nothing like quite trying to find out yourself. So here we are. I've offered them up for the rotor, and obviously for the propeller, which is going to go in this section here. So I started fitting the motor into the rotor head of the new kit, and here you can see there's the top section of the rotor head, and there's the bottom section of the rotor head. And when the two are put together, it looks like this over here. The next bit was to obviously deal with the wiring. As you can see here, the motor for the propeller is now installed, but the wiring comes down through here and down into this bottom section. So I've got a positive and negative for both motors, and they're basically installed, and the wires come into this tank before they go down to the next section. And the next section obviously deals with the base. The base has to house a battery and a switch to turn it on and off. I've used one of these Ivy Pack little boxes that contain paper fasteners. I'm sure you've seen them in the pound shop or something like that. Absolutely ideal for putting a AA battery in, and a switch here. And the wiring comes through these bits of tube that I've made, and I've up the side of the box I've put this oblong tube, which allows me to fit this socket in the top. Now the socket is important because it carries the positive and negative power from the socket here up to the plug here. When it's in situ, it looks a little bit like this. So here's the finished effect. We're going to go through the powering it up. As you can see here, it's powered up and motors go, and you can see everything turning and whirring and doing all the necessary bits and pieces. So you may be saying to yourself, well, okay, where's the lesson learned? And I'm going to say, here's the lesson learned. The lesson learned is that because of this, even though it's only operating at 1.5 volts, the speed that this motor turns, you can't see the propeller. And even when it's painted up, you can't see the propeller, it just turns too fast. So that's good in some ways because that's what it would be like in real life, but when it's a scale model on the stand, people don't see it. They see the rotor head turning because it turns nice and slowly and everything else, but they don't see the propeller turning because it's turning so fast. So next time I'm going to talk about gears and how we slow that motion down so that our lovely models on display can be enjoyed by all. That's it. Thanks ever so much indeed for sharing this video with me, and we'll catch each other again soon. Bye for now. Hi everyone, it's Andy T here again. This video is entitled Lessons Learned, or also known as If You Don't Know, Stop, rewind, do it again.